Now we have cut all this with this different tool. It worked very well, and we think that we should continue with this technique. So the thought is to keep all the other stuff low so that the Bermuda grass can thrive there. It sits in between there. If you look closely, you see that there are Bermuda grass leaves. They just need to have access to the sunlight, and then it will grow again there, closer to the trees. So this is kind of what I understand as managing the natural succession. You put a bit of pressure on one type of plant in favor of another, and then you are managing the succession. What also happened is the trees got a little bit pruned. Down there I don't want to do it just yet. Let's see how this develops. At least these branches go up, and what I want is to let light in there so that the understory can develop. But of course we want grass here and not other stuff. And what I also can say is the horses have the tendency to also go in the other dog enclosure and eat grass and other stuff that is there. The horses are a little bit puzzled when that happens, but it works. So they get along well. And then that means we can do the very same thing here. So when this is a bit taller, here and there we can let the horses in to do some maintenance in the dog enclosure. The sheep won't go in there, they are too afraid. But the horses, being big and strong, and they know what a dog is, and they know the dogs, they can definitely do this instead of us doing maintenance here. And that way the grass, which is supposed to cover the ground in the dog enclosure, can then also receive some fertilizer. So I think that's a win-win situation. We need to find a day when we dedicate a bit time to remove this yurt here, so that this area can then also receive more of the Bermuda grass. It should grow by rhizome in that direction, and with a little bit of maintenance it will happen eventually. So this is looking good. It's working out as planned and hoped for. Of course it is interesting that here on the other side, and you can see I can now walk underneath this, just need to bow down a little bit. So this area here is still void of plants, and there's actually something from the previous installation. This is a piece of an Ethernet cable that was not for outdoor use, was temporary, and then got destroyed and half buried. So the thing is, we need to do something here so that we also have some grasses in this area. And there is the toxic plant. We missed this one here, but it also will be cut down. And there's something else that I can mention. So here you see that this fence is halfway lifted. We had 2 sheep in here the last few days. They managed to go under this and also get out there. So when they're hungry enough, they're not afraid of the dogs. So that's the thing. Animals try to avoid risk, but if it's the risk of dying from hunger or the risk of being hunted, they accept being hunted because it's not so likely. The other one is 100%. You don't eat, you die. So that is interesting. But what we did is we have another fence line there, and we closed all this, so now nobody goes into this animal lane, and we gain some time to build the proper fence here. It was on a list, like many other things. So I'm happy with this outcome, and I'm also happy with the shade that this provides. So you can clearly see the difference, and we definitely need to have more trees so that we have more of the shade. That's the whole trick, plus the water. I wanted to show you a few interesting things. You see the horses there and the dogs. They are all together here, and we have them here in the farmyard since a few days, because outside there isn't that much forage, but in here there's quite a bit, and instead of cutting it down with a machine, we can also feed the animals and have a win-win situation. So let me show you a few things that they did for us. One thing to mention about the relationship between the horses and the dogs is, as long as the horses move slowly and stay together, the dogs are not doing anything. But the moment the horses separate, the dogs don't like this. Then their herding instinct kicks in, and they try to chase them so that they stay together. Of course, the horses now start to run, and that means all the 8 dogs are behind them. But once they stop running, everybody cools down and the mission has been accomplished. This takes a very short moment, and so far I have not been able to catch this on camera, because there was always something else and I had no device to record this. And of course, when I see that, I try to watch over it so that nothing bad happens, but it works. So it works every time. They chase them around a little bit, and then they figure out to stop, and then the dogs have no reason to engage further. They actually retrieve, like, okay, we've done this, now let's go back to sleep. So these are guard dogs. They are not trained to hurt any animals, but the instinct is there. But I would not let them out in the field, because they don't have this instinct to actually do that job. So, or the training. They are better controlled. The other thing is, you see these mastiff dogs out in the fields protecting sheep, but it's a different thing. These dogs, when they have been imprinted on sheep, think they are a sheep, and they go with the flock and they always stay together. But you also here and there see a mastiff walking alone, and they might have escaped or something like that, and then the protection for the sheep is gone. And actually, Mama dog here, Miriam, is just such a case, because she abandoned her flock, probably because she wasn't fed right or something else happened, but definitely she left and decided to stay here. You see the left hind leg of Zolo, the one here in the foreground? He is relaxed, but he tensioned a little bit the moment I was going around. So I was walking there where the dogs are now standing, and that makes him afraid. Huh? You see? Nummer 8 send a message. That is how they do it. There's nothing bad in that. So basically the dogs accept a guest here in the farmyard, their territory. But it's working out great. So let me turn around and show you what I wanted to show you. And by the way, now that I'm standing here just in front of it, a lot more cutting has happened. We are also expecting a bit more rain later. Hopefully it comes, but we are making our own rain. And the cutting is to feed the soil, to build soil, to use everything that grows as some ground cover. And when we cut, we try to cut in a different way. So when it is this stuff here, we cut it pretty low to make good use of all the material. And when it is about sunhemp and friends, we cut this a lot higher, because we noticed that these things will continue growing, and the more there is left, the better photosynthesis works and the faster it grows back. Just the same way as with grasses and grazing. Another small piece of observation. You see these big leaves there? They belong to a flower. I only have the German name in my head. And Kokadenblume, something like that. I have no idea how it's going to look like, but I notice that with the cooler temperature, it is still summer. So not here, this means we are now getting into autumn, but for everybody else, this is still summer, so the temperatures are 30 something. And that somehow seems to be suitable for this plant. Let's see how it turns out. So here you can see more of the cutting effect. So now the sprinkler can better distribute the water over the plant. They are now a bit less tall, and the flowers there, the yellow flowers, that is the sun hemp. So these ones, they managed to make the flowers. Of course the others will be delayed because of the cutting. But let's see how that goes. In between them, there is now quite a bit of biomass. You can also see a little bit of this here at the edge. So that means that soil is now changing and it has a cover. I'm still unsure whether we should now throw overhead the broad beans that we have and cut this completely down and basically switch to the broad beans, or wait. So I'm not sure about that. We will see. We had to fence this in a little bit because that is the only bale of straw that we have left. They decided to nibble quite a bit on this. But then I also noticed we need to make this wider because they figured out, this does not have any electricity, so I can touch it. And so they pushed it in a little bit to get to the straw. They are supposed to eat the other stuff. That is why they are here. So as you can see, they bit off quite a chunk. This is supposed to be reserved for Sakahawea, who cannot come here and forage herself because she's blind and she cannot see. The others soon will be able to forage on green grass. And I am scratching my head to see, see, now they are being called. So one has discovered something, is barking, and now everybody else is running. So they had a little conversation, and now they also go. Franz is late, but apparently he was advising, I'm coming. I'm certain that is about the horses. Let's go check it out. So what we can see here, one is in the dog enclosure, and that might be the reason for the call. And the others are there. So they tried to do something, but as you can see, they are now very separated. I would think that the dogs are now too tired. So that is how it goes. But it's pretty safe, so there is no problem. And if the horse were too annoyed, the horse can kick, and dogs do know that. So it has not come anywhere close to that, so that's good. So now let's go back on track to show you the positive thing that keeping the horses here in the farmyard is doing. So here in the front you see this patch where we had the sunhemp and friends. It was mostly sunflowers, I have to say, and we had a lot of this material standing dry, and now we don't, because the horses ate it, and that is precisely what should happen. There is some barking always again, but I'm not running over there yet because I want to show you this. So you see the horse manure, and that is very good. So they manured in the right place. This is the fertilizer. Of course they removed a lot of the material, so there is no mulching happening now. But now, when it rains, this will develop and some plants will move in. Well, there's a little bit stuff left, and next year, by the end of spring, beginning of May, probably the latter, we will put a few trees in here, and I hope that this time, by January 15th, that is the date, we can order a few vine plants and place them here. So I wanted to do this last year, but something else came in between and we got stuck, and so it did not happen. But I hope that this time this will not happen and we can finally plant the vine here, and maybe later we can also do something with kiwi. But I want this fence be green, and of course then we need to maintain a little bit of distance, and it will then definitely look a lot better. And here we can set a few trees so that this area becomes a little bit shaded. The idea is to have this cabin sit here at the edge and have a porch in front of it. So we will probably lose a little bit of the slope there for the porch, and then the rest can be a shady and green sitting area. Let's see what we will come up with. This has to be nice, because there's this cabin. And if some of you guys would like to come and visit, then that would be where you will be sleeping. And by the way, we had a few slabs of vetiver that we were able to put in here, and they're there. So see a few green spots, not that many, but there are some. Unfortunately, when you plant it that late and then have the horses in here, that is what happens. But these plants were not growing, and therefore the horses were able to pull them out. But others, like this one there, made roots, and so this is working. But of course a lot of vetiver is missing here, so there is certainly space for 50 plants at least, and they will come, but now it's too late, and this is a thing for summer, end of spring. So here we are again. Miriam had been barking, and the young ones have been ignoring the old lady. Because frequently she barks for no good reason. So this is, yeah, old woman behavior. So it happens in humans, and it happens also with animals. We are not so much different. So this is an interesting thing. But she definitely tells the boys and girls when she is annoyed. And she's basically annoyed all the time. So there she is, and I have no idea what her age is. So her days are now eat, sleep, eat, sleep, basically like that. But here and there she wanders around and makes a few remarks in the form of certain type of barking. We could probably move the string a little bit closer to the trees, but all this material around the trees is also helpful in the form of mulch, so being cut instead of passing through the horse's stomach. There is enough forage that they can process their own way. And here they can leave their horse manure as much as they want, because the more fertile this ground here in the future dog enclosure is going to be, the better the grasses will grow. And yes, we definitely need to get this yield out. It was planned many times, but now probably one day Angel and I will simply get to it. I did mention an upcoming trip, so I guess after that. Because once the yield is gone from this place, the Bermuda grass that is behind it has then a chance to come forward. Because the idea is to have this whole dog enclosure be filled with Bermuda grass because it is so resistant. Have the trees for shade. And here and there we can use the horses, they are not afraid, to maintain this instead of mowing ourselves. And at the same time the horses will add fertilizer. So that's the win-win situation. I really like that. Plus, when this pond will fill up, we will have a lot of moisture that helps the trees, and maybe the grasses will also reach down once the soil structure is changing for the better. Of course, right now there is nothing that could reach down. This is just too compacted. But the thing is, something down there has changed. So it is worth going into this and show you that a little bit better. So you can see that the color is different. So the moisture is coming back up. Took a while, and today we don't have blazing sun. So there's something happening. So we're not far away from the groundwater level here. This is this mark at 3.5 meters. Yeah, I had to duck down to find water, to strike water. And apparently it wants to come back up. So that's a very positive thing. I won't step in there with the shoes that I have on. Too slippery and too unstable. But I think if I were to touch it, it is probably a bit slimy. So this is very moist, I think. And we can see, for perspective, the horse's size with the ground here, with that hole where I'm standing in. You might ask, why is there such a big hole in this dog enclosure, in the future dog enclosure? The idea is to have some body of water to keep everything around moist, so that whatever plants we have in here over time will have a water source. So my expectation is, when this really fills up and there is enough vegetation and roots doing their magic all around, that step by step, over time, there is less need to water in here, because the water can be sucked out of this. But of course we will see. I'm not afraid of the water flowing away, because that is pushing from below. So if it is saturated, then it won't flow away. So I don't intend to seal this pond. I hope that nature takes care of it. Of course, the drought that we have this summer was a little bit more extreme than we were used to. You see that branch here to the left with those hanging leaves? That is not as it's supposed to be. I don't know why that happened, because everything else on that tree looks very good. The leaves are upright, but these here look like there was an issue with the moisture, because that is how it usually looks like. But the branch itself is green, so I'm not sure why that has happened. It's looking pretty nice now that the sun is shining in this way. And you can see that we are halfway there. to reach the height of that oak tree there. The horses haven't really worked on this here, and my hope was that they would go for it, because when I provided this by hand to them, they happily munched on it, but apparently they are looking for something else. But eventually they will. That is why we did not touch this with a machine, because it is better in the horse's stomach. I should also not forget these. So these are some of the beans that will soon go to the trellis. This here is the trellis that I was talking about. So the beans will go here, and this is the beginning of a green fence, and I want to continue this all around to make it look nice. Plus this is food, so we can actually feed ourselves on those beans that will grow there. So that's a very nice thing, and they fix nitrogen and help to improve the soil for other plants. Just a little example of what can also happen with those many dogs around, and they fight, which is totally normal, and then they come here. In this case the victim, it was Schneemann, the biggest one. He was bleeding heavily from the ear, not for very long, but he was, and so he shook his head, and you see what he made. Quite a mess. But this is normal. This will wash off at some point. The machine can be cleaned. But if you don't know the context and the details about this, you might think something very strange and bad has happened. No, nothing bad has happened. This is what happens with these dogs. This is totally normal. Of course, this looks like a crime scene, but nothing happened, like I'm saying.